Let me be absolutely clear. On this tax issue, I have no quarrel with the Institute of Directors at all. I expect you to campaign for lower taxes for your membership. If it didn't, you'd want your membership fees back. If I was talking to a gathering of farmers, I would expect them to be in favour of farm subsidies. If I was talking to high-tech companies, I'd expect them to be in favour of tax breaks for high technology. If I was talking to my old friends in the oil industry, I'd expect them to be in favour of tax cuts for oil exploration. I have absolutely no quarrel with that. What I do have a quarrel with is with other politicians who are so weak that they won't stand and look you in the eye and say, well, we hear what you say, and we're sympathetic, but sorry, the answer is no, we can't afford it. But that's enough political knockabout. I want to devote the rest of what I want to say to saying what we, the Liberal Democrats, would do about the situation we have in the economy. And I want to start with the banks, because that's where the crisis was located. It was the collapse of the banking system which led into recession, which in turn helped create the massive fiscal problem that we now have. And what's happening is that the banks have lurched from feast to famine. They're hoarding capital rather than lending it. And what I believe should be happening is that the banks in which the government has a controlling share, which were rescued by you, the taxpayer, should be requiring those banks to lend to good, solvent British small, medium-sized companies, and they're not doing it. But the deficit problem is easier to resolve if there is growth. And that means, in the short run, we should not be doing anything in government that pushes the economy back into a double-dip recession, one of the consequences of which would be, of course, to increase government spending and reduce the tax take and make the deficit problem even worse. But looking beyond that, we need a deeper commitment to economic growth. And the answer to that, it's in here. It's when you have the confidence to invest and expand your businesses. Well, of course, there are matters on which you've got to consult. Let me just be quite clear about the CGT thing. I mean, essentially what we're recommending is going back to a framework which Mrs. Thatcher and Nigel Lawson introduced in the 1980s, because they saw quite sensibly that it is dangerous to have a massive disparity between earned income tax and capital gains tax. There is a genuine problem for entrepreneurs and family businesses who want to make capital gains and not be penalised for it. We totally understand that, and any new structure has got to respect that. And we do not want to penalise people in that position. Let me be quite clear about that. Important, yeah. But at the moment, the position is that there are an awful lot of people who, if they have access to a good tax accountant, can simply turn earnings into capital and pay tax at 18% rather than 40 or potentially 50. And that's simply an invitation to massive tax avoidance, and we do not think that is sensible. Well, I do recognise that for small companies particularly, regulation is extremely onerous. I mean, I came out of a big multinational. You have a big compliance department. They just get on with it, and it's not a big problem. But for the small guys, spending a high proportion of time ticking boxes and looking over their shoulder at regulators is a major problem, and we've got to reduce it. What I would say is that before I took on the current job I have, which is shadowing the Chancellor, I was our spokesman on business, trade and industry, and I drew up a long list of regulations that should be got rid of. And whenever I've been around business groups, I say to them, look, okay, you complain about red tape, just give us your list. Let's see it. Let's see the concrete things that you think you can get rid of, and we'll take that on if they're practical and sensible. So after the election, I'll be back here talking to you. You give me a list. But let me conclude by saying this. I and my party do recognise the enormous seriousness of the problems we now face. Our political system has become discredited, it's lost its reputation. We have an economy which has a broken business model. We're going to have to address that. We have a plan to do it, and we're ready to begin that massive undertaking.